The message came through at 3:00 in the morning ship time, Captain Laura. Bennett was already awake, unable to sleep as the diplomatic vessel Horizons call drifted through the quiet darkness. Between stars, she had learned long ago that space never truly slept, and neither did the responsibilities that came with commanding a ship. Communication officer's voice broke through the silence. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal. It's weak, but it's repeating on all emergency frequencies. Lara moved quickly to the bridge, her boots echoing in the empty corridors. Ambassador Daniel Cruz joined her moments later, his gray hair slightly messy from being woken. Suddenly, Commander Kevin Shaw arrived. Last, already dressed in his military uniform, as if he had been expecting trouble. What do we have? Lara asked, taking her seat at the center of the bridge. The signal is coming from a system called Vila, the officer reported. It's a general distress call. They're asking for help from anyone who can hear them. Daniel frowned and moved to the historical database terminal. His fingers moved across the screen as he searched through old records. Vila, I know that name from somewhere. Larva watched him work. Daniel had spent 40 years studying alien cultures and their histories. If anyone could find a connection, it was him. There, Daniel said suddenly, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. I found it. He transferred the file to the main screen. The bridge crew fell silent as they read the report from nearly 200 years ago. But in 2156, humanity's third colony ship had suffered a catastrophic engine failure. In uncharted space, the vessel carried 12,000 colonists, including 4,000 children. They had no way to call for help. They were drifting toward a star that would burn them alive in 3 days. Then a ship appeared. It was small and clearly not designed for rescue operations. The aliens aboard called themselves the Vuliri. They did not speak the same language as humans, but they understood fear, and they understood the faces of parents holding their children close. The Valkyrie captain made a decision that day. He ordered his crew to transfer all their food, water, and medical supplies to the human ship. He used his own vessel's power cells to stabilize the human engines. He guided them to safety over the course of 9 days, during which his own crew went hungry so that human children could eat. When they finally reached a habitable planet, the Valkyrie captain simply said goodbye. He refused payment. He refused recognition. His ship limped away into the darkness, nearly out of power, and the humans never saw him again. The report ended with a single note. The Vuliri asked for nothing. They simply helped. Lara felt something tighten in her chest. She looked around the bridge and saw the same emotion reflected on every face. How far is Vila from our current position? She asked. 18 hours at maximum speed, the navigation officer replied. But Captain, Vila is in territory claimed by the Dominion of Krath. Kevin stepped forward, his expression serious. The Krath are not people we want to anger. They've conquered over 40 species in the last century. If we enter their claimed space without permission, they could see it as an act of war. Lavra understood the warning. Humanity had grown strong over the past 200 years, but they were still considered a mid-tier power in the galaxy. They had good ships and brave soldiers, but they could not match the craft in numbers. What's happening to the Valkyrie right now? She asked. Communication officer ran a deeper analysis on the distress signal based on what we're receiving. Their home world is under siege. Someone has blockaded the planet. They're running out of food and medicine. Daniel closed the historical file and turned to face Lara. Captain, I understand the risks. I understand what war with the craft could mean, but some debts cannot be measured in politics. Kevin shook his head slowly. Ambassador, with respect, we don't even know if this connection matters anymore. That rescue happened 200 years ago. Most humans have never even heard of the Valley. Does that change what they did? Daniel asked quietly. Kevin had no answer for that. Lara stood and walked to the front of the bridge. Through the main viewport she could see the distant glow of stars, millions of points of light representing worlds she would never visit and people she would never meet. She thought about the Velry captain from long ago making his choice in a moment when calculations and risks did not matter. He had seen people in danger. He had helped. It was that simple. Set course for Vera. Lavra ordered maximum speed. Kevin took a breath. Captain, Earth Command should be informed before we take action. They may order us to stand down. Then I'll deal with that when it happens, Lava replied. But we're not going to sit here debating while people die, people who saved us. Once, she moved to the communication station and began recording a message. For Earth Command, she kept it short and direct. This is Captain Lara Bennett of the Horizons call. We have received a distress signal from the Velturi home world. Historical records show that the Vel saved 12,000 human colonists in 2156. At great cost to themselves, they are now in danger. We are responding. Send back up if you can. She ended the recording and sent it toward Earth. Daniel walked to stand beside her. Do you think they'll come? Lara thought about the people back home. She thought about the families descended from those 12,000 colonists. She thought about what it meant to be human. I think, she said slowly, that when they learn what the Velry did for us, they won't be able to stay away. Horizons call's engines powered up to full strength. The ship turned toward Velry space and began its jump. Kevin watched the stars blur as they entered. Faster than light travel, we might be starting a war over a species most people have never heard of. Lara nodded. Or we might be showing the galaxy what kind of people we are. The ship carried them forward into the unknown toward a world of strangers who had once given everything for humanity. And somewhere in Laura's heart she knew this was exactly what they were supposed to do. Some debts were too important to forget. The Horizons call dropped out of faster than light travel at the edge of the Vel system. What Captain Lara Bennett saw through the viewport made her stomach turn cold. 20 craft warships hung in space around the small blue planet. They formed a perfect ring of death, blocking any ship from entering or leaving. The craft vessels were massive and ugly, designed to inspire fear rather than admiration. Their hulls were covered in weapons and their engines glowed with angry red light. They've completely surrounded the planet. Commander Kevin Shaw reported from his station. Nothing is getting through that blockade. Ambassador Daniel Cruz stared at the distant world. How long have they been here? The sensor officer ran her scans based on the radiation patterns from their engines. At least 3 months, maybe longer. 3 months. Lara imagined what that meant for the people below. 3 Months of watching supplies run out. 3 months of hoping for help that never came. 3 months of slowly starving, while warships circled overhead like vultures. Are we detecting any life signs on the surface? She asked. Yes, Captain. Approximately 8 million Veluri remain alive, but their biosigns are weak. Many of them are showing signs of malnutrition. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. 8 million people slowly dying because no one in the galaxy cared enough to help them. Take us closer, Lavra ordered. I want them to see us. Kevin turned to her sharply. Captain, if we approach the blockade, the craft will respond. That's what I'm counting on. The Horizon's call moved forward, its single human vessel looking impossibly small against the wall of Krath warships. Within minutes, a harsh transmission crackled through their communication systems. Human vessel, you are entering restricted space. This system belongs to the Dominion of CR. Leave now or face destruction. Lara stood and straightened her uniform. Open a channel, let me see who I'm talking to. The screen flickered to life, revealing a craft commander. He was tall and reptilian with scales the color of dried blood and eyes like chips of black ice. His uniform was covered in metals that Elver suspected came from conquering defenseless worlds. I am Warlord Draxon, he announced, commander of this occupation fleet. You have 30 seconds to explain why I should not destroy your ship. Lara kept her voice calm. I am Captain Laura Bennett of the human diplomatic vessel Horizon's call. We received a distress signal from this world and came to offer assistance. Draxon laughed. It was an ugly sound, like stones grinding together. Assistance? The Valkyrie belonged to us. Now they refuse to pay tribute to the Dominion. Now they will learn the cost of that refusal. The Valkyrie are a peaceful species, Daniel said, stepping forward. They have no military. They pose no threat to anyone, which is exactly why they make perfect subjects. Draxon replied. The weak exist to serve the strong. This is the natural order of the universe. Lara felt anger building in her chest, but she kept it controlled. I'm asking you to end this blockade and allow humanitarian aid to reach the surface. Draxon leaned closer to the screen. And why would I do that? What are the Valkyrie to you? LRA thought about the historical records. She thought about the Valkyrie captain from 200 years ago giving his food to human children, their family, she said. Draxon blinked in confusion. Family? You're not even the same species. Family isn't always about blood. The Krath warlord studied her for a long moment, then he laughed again. You humans are strange. You travel across the galaxy to die for creatures you've never met. Very well, I give you 1 standard day to leave this system. After that, I will destroy your ship and continue my work here. We're not leaving, LRA said firmly. Draxon's eyes narrowed. Then you will die with them. He cut the transmission. Kevin was already running calculations. Captain, we can't fight 20 warships. We need to retreat and call for reinforcements. If we leave, they'll tighten the blockade. Lava replied. The Valkyrie might not survive long enough for help to arrive. Daniel was working at his station. I'm receiving a transmission from the surface. Someone is trying to contact us. Put it through. The screen changed to show a face unlike any Lara had seen before. The velour was small, with soft gray skin and large eyes that seemed to hold centuries of gentleness. He looked old, his face lined with age and worry, but there was dignity in the way he held himself. "I am Elder Sauron," he said, his voice weak but clear. "Leader of what remains of my people. Are you truly humans?" "We are," LRA confirmed. "We came because of your distress signal." Sauron's large eyes filled with tears. "We sent that signal hoping someone might hear. We did not expect, we never thought you saved our people once," Daniel said gently, "a long time ago. Your ancestors rescued a human colony ship we never forgot." A young Velry appeared beside Esvan. She was smaller than him, with curious eyes that studied the humans with wonder. "I am Lyanna," she said. "I am the keeper of our histories. I know the story you speak of." She held up an old beta tablet, its surface cracked but still functioning. "My great-great-grandfather was the navigator on that rescue ship. He wrote about it in his personal journal. He said the human children had the most beautiful smiles." Lara felt tears forming in her own eyes. She fought them back. "Your ancestors nearly destroyed themselves saving us." Lyanna nodded. "They gave everything, their food, their power, their safety. When they finally returned home, they had almost nothing left." She paused. "They never regretted it, not for a single day." Elder Sorvan looked at Lara with an expression that mixed hope and fear. "Why have you come?" "We have nothing to offer you. We have no military, no resources, no strategic value. The Krath are powerful. War with them could destroy your people." Lara smiled softly. "Some things matter more than strategy." She opened a channel to broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring every craft ship would hear her words. "This is Captain Laura Bennett. The Vellery people are now under human protection. Any attack on them will be considered an attack on humanity itself. We will not leave, we will not surrender, and we will not forget what they did for us." From somewhere across the vast darkness, Warlord Draxon's response came cold and hard. "Then you will share their fate. In one day I will show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Dominion." Lara turned off the screen. She looked at her crew. A Daniel, a Kevin. She saw fear in their eyes, but also something stronger. Pride. "Send our message to Earth," she ordered. "Tell them everything, and then we wait." Admiral Patricia Cole stood in the war room at Earth Command, surrounded by the most powerful military leaders humanity had ever produced. The message from Captain Bennett played on the large screen before them, and when it finished, the room fell into complete silence. Senator Gregory Lane broke the quiet first. "This is madness. We cannot go to war with the Dominion of Krath over a species we've had no contact with for 2 centuries. Admiral Cole did not respond immediately. Instead, she walked to a smaller screen and began accessing the historical archives. "Senator, do you know how many descendants of those original 12,000 colonists are alive today?" Lane shifted uncomfortably. "I don't see how that's relevant." 347 million. Cole said. 347 million humans exist because the Valkyrie decided that saving strangers was more important than their own survival. She pulled up the original rescue records. The war room filled with the sound of an alien voice speaking words that had been translated long ago. "Transfer all remaining food supplies to the human vessel." "Yes, all of them. The children are hungry." Another voice asked. "Captain, what will our crew eat?" The Vel captain's response was calm and certain. "We will Manage, these people need it more than we do. Admiral Cole paused the recording. That captain's name was Veron. He died 6 months after the rescue from health problems caused by the starvation he endured while saving our people. His crew suffered for years. Afterward, they never complained. They never asked for recognition or payment. Senator Lane looked away. Other leaders in the room shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The question before us, Cole continued, is not whether we can afford to help the Vituri. The question is what kind of people we want to be. Do we remember those who helped us, or do we abandon them when it becomes inconvenient? The room remained silent for a long moment. Then General Marcus Webb, commander of the Outer Colony Defense Forces, stood up. I have 2 daughters, he said quietly. They both descended from survivors of that colony ship. If the Valkyrie hadn't acted, they would never have existed. Neither would I. He looked around the room. I say we fight. One by one, other voices joined him. Admirals, generals, politicians who had come ready to argue for caution found themselves unable to speak against the memory of what the Valkyrie had done. Admiral Cole made the decision. I'm authorizing full fleet deployment, 12 battleships, 40 cruisers, 200 support vessels. Every available ship moves to Vila immediately. The order went out across human space. Within hours, the news spread to every colony, every station, every ship. The story of the Velari rescue, forgotten by most for generations, became the only thing people talked about. News programs played the old recordings. Children learned the name Veron in their schools. People who had never thought about the past suddenly felt connected to it. On the colony world of New Geneva, an elderly woman named Clara Morrison watched the news with tears streaming down her face. Her grandmother had been a child on that colony ship. She had grown up hearing stories about the gentle aliens who fed her when she was hungry, who carried her when she was tired, who sang soft songs in a language she could not understand. Clara walked to her computer and recorded a message. My family owes everything to the Very. I am 84 years old. I cannot fight, but I can give what I have. Please use this donation to help them. Millions of similar messages flooded in from across human space. Money, supplies, offers to volunteer. Humanity's response was overwhelming, but the most surprising message came from outside human territory. Ambassador Thias of the Narathi Collective appeared on a secure channel to Admiral Cole. The Narathi were tall, insect-like beings with compound eyes and graceful movements. 20 years earlier, a deadly plague had swept through their colonies. Human medical ships had arrived without being asked, bringing vaccines and doctors. They had saved millions of Narathi lives. We have heard what is happening at Vila, Tyrus said. The Narathi Collective wishes to offer our medical ships to assist. If humans are willing to fight for those who help them, we are willing to stand beside you. Admiral Cole felt her throat tighten. Ambassador, this could put your people at risk. The Krath may see your involvement as an act of war. Tyrus made a gesture that translated roughly as a smile. Humans taught us something important 20 years ago. You taught us that helping others is never a risk. It is an investment in the kind of galaxy we want to live in. Other species followed. The Fenari, who had received human assistance during a refugee Crisis offered supply vessels, the Dothrin, whose homeworld humans had helped rebuild after natural disasters, sent engineering teams, one by one. Old allies remembered what humanity had done for them, and they came forward to help. Word of the growing response reached the Galactic Assembly. Ambassador Thias requested an emergency session, standing before representatives from hundreds of species. Diary spoke clearly. For centuries we've measured power and weapons and territory. We've watched empires rise and fall, always believing that strength comes from conquest. But today I ask you to look at what is happening around Vila. Screen showed images of human ships gathering, joined by vessels from allied species. Humanity is not fighting for resources or strategic advantage. They are fighting because 200 years ago, small ship of gentle beings showed them kindness. They are repaying a debt that most of the galaxy had forgotten even existed. Thyras paused, letting the words settle over the assembly. Watch carefully, all of you. This is what humans do for those who showed them kindness, and perhaps when you see what happens next, you will remember it the next time someone asks for your help. The session ended with no official action, but the representatives returned to their governments with much to think about. Meanwhile, the largest human fleet ever assembled began dropping out of faster-than-light travel around Vila. 12 battleships, their hulls gleaming with purpose, 40 cruisers bristling with weapons, 200 support vessels carrying soldiers, supplies, and hope. Admiral Cole stood on the bridge of the flagship, enduring promise, and opened a channel to Captain Bennett. Horizon's call. This is Admiral Cole. Backup has arrived. Laura's voice came through thick with emotion. Admiral, you have no idea how good it is to hear your voice. Cole smiled. The craft gave you 1 day to leave. Their time is almost up. Let's show them what humanity does for its family. On the surface of Velra, Elder Sun watched the sky fill with human ships. Beside him, young Lyanna clutched her great-grandfather's journal to her chest. They came, Soren whispered, hardly believing what he was seeing. They actually came. Vienna was crying, but she was also smiling. My ancestor was right. He wrote that humans have beautiful smiles, but I think their hearts are even more beautiful. The fleet positioned itself between the craft blockade and the planet. The message was clear. If the craft wanted, they would have to go through humanity first. Warlord Draxon stared at the tactical display on his bridge and felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest. Doubt. When the humans had first arrived with their single ship, he had laughed at them. They were insects buzzing around the giant. He could crush them without effort. But now, looking at the wall of human warships forming before him, he understood that he had made a terrible mistake. How many vessels? He demanded. His tactical officer's voice trembled slightly. Over 200 confirmed human warships, Warlord. We're also detecting ships from the Narathi Collective and at least 3 other allied species. Draxon slammed his fist against his command chair. Contact the Supreme Hierarch. We need reinforcements. The transmission to the Dominions capital took several minutes to connect. When Supreme Hierarch Malachin finally appeared on screen, his expression was cold and unimpressed. You requested reinforcements for a simple blockade of a defenseless world, Malachin asked. The situation has changed, Draxon explained quickly. The humans have arrived in force. They claim the Velry are under their protection. Malachans. Eyes narrowed. The Vel, those small, weak creatures who refuse to pay tribute. Why would humans care about them? I don't know, Supreme Hierarch. But they've brought their entire fleet. There was a long pause. Malachan studied the tactical data that Draxon had transmitted. His expression did not change. You told me this would be a simple operation, Malachan said finally. You told me there would be no complications. You were wrong. His voice turned cold. Deal with this yourself. The Dominion does not waste resources correcting the failures of incompetent warlords. The transmission ended. Draxon felt anger and fear mixing in his chest. He was alone. If he retreated, his career would be over. If he fought and lost, his life would be over. He had only one choice. Remaining. Attack. All ships prepare for combat, he ordered. We will break their formation and prove that the Krath Dominion fears nothing. The Kraraft fleet surged forward, 20 warships moving in a tight formation designed to punch through enemy lines. They had used this tactic dozens of times against dozens of species. It had always worked before. Admiral Cole watched them come. She had studied craft tactics extensively during her career. She knew exactly what they were trying to do. They're expecting us to fight like everyone else they've conquered, she said to her command staff. They think we'll panic, break formation, and let them divide us. They're wrong. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships execute. Patent Delta 7, stay tight, trust your neighbors, we fight as one. The human fleet responded with perfect coordination. Instead of scattering when the craft charged, they condensed their formation, creating a wall of overlapping defensive fire. Every ship protected the ships beside it. Every gunner watched their assigned sector. There were no gaps, no weaknesses, no fear. The craft slammed into the human line and found themselves trapped in a crossfire from multiple directions. Their rigid formation, so effective against panicked defenders, became a liability when every direction brought enemy fire. On the horizon's call, Lieutenant Commander Nathan Price led the tactical team through a series of rapid maneuvers. He had spent years developing new combat strategies, specifically designed to counter species like the craft who relied on intimidation and overwhelming force. Target their flagships' weapon arrays. Price ordered, precision strikes only. We want to disable, not destroy. The strike team, consisting of 4 fast attack vessels, dove through the chaos of battle. They weaved between larger ships too quick for the craft's heavy weapons to track. Price's ship took the lead, drawing fire while the others positioned themselves. Now Price called out. 3 synchronized strikes hit the Krath flagship's main weapon systems. Explosions rippled across the warships. Hull secondary systems failed. The great vessel went dark on half its decks. On the flagship's bridge, Draxon watched his tactical display fill with error messages. His main weapons were gone. His shields were failing. His communications were damaged. Warlord, we need to retreat. His first officer urged retreat. Draxon turned on him with fury. The Kraraf do not retreat. If we stay, we die. The humans are not fighting like anyone we faced before. They're not afraid of us. That was the truth that hurt most of all. Draxon had built his entire career on the fear he inspired in others. He had conquered worlds simply by showing up, knowing that most species would surrender rather than face the Dominion's wrath. But these humans did not surrender. They did not run. They fought like people, protecting something they loved. One by one, craft ships began signaling surrender, their captains seeing their flagship crippled and their formation broken chose survival over pride. Draxon watched his fleet fall apart. Around him, the battle was lost. He had only one option left: signal our surrender. He said, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. Admiral Cole received the surrender with quiet satisfaction. All ships cease fire. The blockade is broken. Across the fleet, cheers erupted. On the surface of Vila, the Velry watched the craft ships pulling back and wept with relief and joy. But the victory had not been without cost. 3 human vessels had been destroyed. 17 more were badly damaged. Over 400 human soldiers had given their lives defending a species they had never met. Dodge. Captain Bat stood on the bridge of the Horizon's call, reading the casualty reports. Each name represented a family that would receive terrible news. Each death was a price paid for keeping a promise. Was it worth it? Kevin asked quietly. Dulara thought about the question carefully. I think they would say yes, she finally answered. They died protecting people who needed protection. They died for something that mattered. On the planet below, human landing craft began touching down. Soldiers emerged, carrying food, medicine, and supplies. They were met by crowds of very small and fragile and overwhelmed with emotion. Elder Sven approached the first human soldier he saw. The soldier was young, barely out of training, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Thank you, Sorvin said, his voice breaking. Thank you for coming. The soldier knelt so they were at the same eye level. No, Elder, thank you for what your people did for ours a long time ago. So Van shook his head, still not fully understanding. We never expected repayment. We only did what was right. The soldier smiled. And now we're doing the same. That night, as human medics worked to save the weakest, very children, and human engineers began restoring the planet's damaged infrastructure, Elder Sun found Ambassador Daniel Cruz standing alone watching the stars. Ambassador Sun said softly, "May I ask you something?" "Of course." Sun struggled to find the right words. "Why? I have asked this question many times since you arrived, and I still don't understand. Your people sacrificed so much. Your soldiers died, your ships were destroyed. We have nothing to offer you. No resources, no military power, no strategic value. Why would you do this for us?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment, then he turned to face the Oval Leader. "Because 200 years ago, you didn't ask those questions, you just helped." He put his hand gently on Sun's shoulder. "Some things matter more than calculations, Elder. Some things matter more than logic. You taught us that, and we never forgot." Soren had no words left. He simply stood beside the human and watched the stars, feeling for the first time in months that perhaps the universe was not as cold as he had feared. The news of the Battle of Vila spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. On thousands of worlds, in hundreds of languages, beings of every shape and size heard the same incredible story. A species called humanity had gone to war for people who had helped them 2 centuries ago. They had fought and died for a debt most of the galaxy thought was meaningless, thought at the Galactic Assembly representatives gathered for an emergency session unlike any in recent memory. The Great Hall was filled to capacity with species who normally ignored each other standing side by side, all of them watching the central platform. Ambassador Thyers of the Narathi Collective took the speaking position. The insect-like diplomat looked around the vast chamber, knowing that what happened in the next few minutes could change everything. We have all heard what happened at Vila. Tyrus began. Many of you have already formed opinions. Some believe humanity acted foolishly, risking everything for a species of no strategic importance. Others believe they acted rashly, starting a conflict that could have been avoided. Cyrus paused, letting the silence settle. I believe they acted exactly as they should have. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. For centuries we have built our civilization on calculations. We measure the value of all eyes by their resources. We count the worth of planets by their minerals. We decide who to help based on what we can gain in return. Thy has gestured toward the great windows where stars glittered against the endless dark. And what has this given us? A galaxy of fear. Galaxy where the strong prey on the weak. A galaxy where kindness is seen as stupidity and compassion as weakness. The Krath ambassador, a young officer sent to replace the disgraced warlord Draxon, looked away in shame. Humanity has shown us another way. Cyrus continued. They have demonstrated that strength can serve something greater than self-interest. They have proven that some bonds transcend time and distance and even common sense. The ambassador's voice grew stronger. They have given us hope that we can be better than we have been. The assembly erupted in debate. Some representatives argued that humanity's actions were inspiring. Others insisted they were dangerous. The Krath ambassador tried to defend his people's actions but found few willing to listen. In the end, the assembly voted to impose sanctions on the dominion of Krath. Trade restrictions, travel bans, diplomatic isolation. The mighty empire that had conquered 40 species found itself suddenly alone, facing a galaxy that no longer feared them. More importantly, other species began to change. The FARI government, inspired by humanity's example, announced a new policy of providing emergency aid to any world in crisis, regardless of political alignment. The Dothrani established a scholarship fund for young beings from disadvantaged species. Even the notoriously isolationist Kori opened their borders to refugees for the first time in 300 years. One by one, old grudges were set aside. Former enemies reached out to make peace. Species that had fought wars remembered why they had been friends once and began to rebuild those connections. On Velro, the recovery continued with remarkable speed. Human engineers worked alongside Veltari scholars to repair damaged cities. Human doctors trained Velri medical students. Human teachers opened schools where Velter children learned about the galaxy that had suddenly become so much larger. Elder Sorvan lived long enough to see his people begin to thrive again. On his final day, surrounded by family and human friends who had become like family, he spoke his last words to Lyanna, the young historian who had kept faith through the darkest times. Tell them, he whispered, tell everyone who comes after us, tell them that kindness is never wasted. It may take years. It May take centuries, but it always comes back. Lyanna promised she would dot in. The months that followed, the Velry made a decision that surprised everyone, including themselves. They announced the creation of the Velry Medical Course, volunteer organization dedicated to helping others across the galaxy. Their first mission was to a border world of the Craft Dominion, where refugees were suffering from disease and hunger. When asked why they would help the very people who had tried to destroy them, the Valkyrie leader gave a simple answer: because this is who we are. This is who humans reminded us to be. Captain Lavra Bennett returned to Earth a hero, but she never felt comfortable with the title. At a ceremony honoring the fleet's actions, she spoke briefly. "We didn't do anything special," she said. "We did what the Valkyrie would have done. We did what any decent people should do. We helped." After the ceremony, she found Ambassador Daniel Cruz sitting alone in a garden watching the sunset. "Do you think things will really change?" she asked, sitting beside him. Daniel considered the question carefully. "I think we planted a seed. Whether it grows depends on choices that haven't been made yet by people who haven't been born yet." He smiled. "But I believe it will grow. I have to believe that." 3 years after the Battle of Vila, a new tradition began. Human schools started hosting exchange students from other species, and Valkyrie children were among the first to participate. They studied alongside human children, learning and playing and growing together. On the first day of one such program, a teacher asked the class what they wanted to be when they grew up. Human children gave the usual answer: doctors, scientists, explorers, artists. Then a small Valkyrie girl raised her hand. Her name was Sala, and she was the great granddaughter of the captain who had saved the human colony ship all those years ago. "What do you want to be, Sala?" the teacher asked. Sala thought for a moment. Her large eyes were serious but hopeful. "I want to help people," she said, "like the humans helped us, like we helped them." The teacher smiled. "That's a wonderful goal." Saul nodded confidently. "My ancestor helped humans when they needed it. The humans helped us when we needed it. Someday, someone will need my help, and I'll be ready." The class moved on to other topics, but the Volfrey girl's words lingered in the air. Simple words spoken by a child carrying the weight of centuries. That evening, the teacher recorded Saul's answer in her daily journal. She didn't know why exactly. It just felt important. Years later, when historians wrote about the great transformation that swept across galactic civilization, they would point to many causes: the battle of the speech at the assembly, the policy changes and peace treaties and cultural exchanges. But some historians believe that transformation really began much earlier. They believed it started on a quiet day in uncharted space, when a small ship chose to save strangers who needed help, and they believed it continued in moments like this one, when a child looked at the future and saw not competition or fear, but an endless chain of kindness stretching forward into the stars. The final words in most historical accounts were always the same, and somewhere in the vast silence of space, a new tradition was born, not a tradition of conquest, of fear, but of kindness passed from hand to hand across the stars. Some called it humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, others called it the galaxy's gift to itself. But everyone agreed on one thing: it had transformed destiny, and it all began because someone long ago chose to help.